Council meeting of November the 6th to order. You have an agenda in front of you there. I call for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councilors Randawa and Forster. Any additions, deletions? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. I'll note that we have a single item of business this evening, and that is the introduction of the budget, the 2024 budget. At this point in time, it's a staff budget until it's been made public and commented on by the public, and council has a chance to review it and go through it and eventually adopt it. And then, of course, it becomes council's budget. With that, I'll invite any member of the public that wants to comment on the budget this evening are more than welcome to come forward at this time and ask or comment on the budget. Seeing none, and I understand it, given that the budget's about to be presented. Dr. Buchan, I would, well, actually, let's have the motion here. Can I have a motion, please, that council receives the 2024 budget report for information, discussion purposes, and delays any direction to staff until after the public consultation? Councilors Niche and Councilors Cunningham. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Dr. Buchan, you want to introduce the budget to us?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the tremendous work and hard work that Director Bombin and Deputy Chief Financial Officer Higginson have put into this. And it's not just them, but they shouldered the weight of the work. The departments, each director of departments worked very cooperatively to cut a great deal out of the initial draft of the budget in order to bring it down to the proposal that we have today. And that's not easy, because there's many important things and good things that we like to do for the community, for service, but we are in still a difficult financial position. Though I'm happy to say better than last year in terms of the budget proposal. So I'm simply going to do an overview, give you an executive overview, and Director Bauman is going to go through the budget, and there'll be a chance for council to ask questions and receive some answers. And I note that while there was an opportunity for the public to ask questions tonight, it was really early for them to do that. There will be two public consultation sessions coming up that Director Bauman will describe. So this year, in terms of overall tax increase, the staff budget, draft budget, is at 7.7%. There are a number of drivers for this. In detail, somewhat detailed, the drivers are of the 7.7%, 3.97% is the labor contracts that we have signed. So that's not discretionary. That's something that we have to abide by. We've assigned about 0.86% towards energy supplies due to inflation. There's a minor amount for an increase in the library funding of 0.12%. Our policing contract increase is 1.42%, and there's a 0.56% increase for the transit contract, and there's a 0.77% for a staff replacement, and 2 positions, actually 1.5 positions that we feel are important for service delivery. And staff will speak to those 3 positions, and I'll speak to the first one. The first one is the recreation director position, which has been unfilled now for a few years, and that's been picked up by our director or our corporate officer, director of administrative and legislative services, And it's not fair for one person to take on another director's position when there is so much to be done. And so it's not a viable arrangement going forward. Recognizing the impact of that, however, what we're doing in that department is we're not replacing a recent move in order to mitigate the cost, the full cost of that. So we've taken a position out of the rec department in order to minimize the financial impact. There is a position in the engineering department which is necessary to enable work to proceed in our asset management programming, which, as we now know, is very, very important, as well as to support development applications. And right now, that is our biggest processing challenge. We're waiting. It takes too long, much too long, to have those reviews done because of staffing issues. And there is a part-time position in development services, and this is related to improving administrative support for the bylaw function. And we'll ask Director Pucci and Director Pope to speak to both of those in a little more detail. In terms of other things I would like to say here, the capital plan in this budget is very ambitious. $140 million. Only 1% of that is being funded from taxes, and that's not new. That's the existing tax contribution that we put in for roads principally. 99% is grant funded and other funded, which is a very impressive number. So I think that council, in my view, should be very pleased with that. Inflation, 4%. That's driving a lot of the upward pressure on the cost drivers, the specific cost drivers that I mentioned. We have a $500,000 contribution from City West this year, and that's been loosely described as a dividend in past years. It's not a dividend. It's a repayment of equity that the city put in initially when City West was transferred out as a separate company. So that's basically repayment of equity over time, and there's some flexibility in how that is paid. We try not to put that into operations, but that's been a challenge. Legacy, our municipally controlled corporation, is contributing $2.122 million in dividends this year, and that's made helped significantly in keeping taxes and utility fees down. So that's my introduction. The Director Bauman will provide all the details and go through the project, the budget in some detail and answer questions.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to present this to Mayor and Council, and thank you, Dr. Buchan, for the introduction. So this year, we have moved our budget process to the fall, as was communicated in June of this year. The purpose was to adopt the financial plan in advance of the fiscal year to enable staff to begin procurement prior to goods and service providers being booked up, allows Council to consider community grants at the same time as the overall budget, and gives the community greater clarity of the estimated tax increase earlier. This presentation and the accompanying document attached to the report to Council begins the public engagement component of the budget process. So the budget has been prepared and requests made to align with Council's strategic plan adopted in January. In building the budget for 2024, there are certain financial plan assumptions that are embedded, including provision for statutory financial obligations and debt servicing requirements, ensuring provision for contractual requirements, including wages, services, and supplies, including financial assistance to organizations through grants and permissive exemptions, making assumptions for energy and supply cost escalations, adherence to legislative requirements and strategic plans of Council, maintaining service levels at those already in place, and maintaining sufficient cash on hand to meet obligations as they come due. The city's finances are organized into 4 separate funds. Water is funded through utilities as well as sanitation, sewer, and the operating fund is the only one that actually funds general operating costs, which is funded through taxation. General operating costs include RCMP, fire, recreation, roads, etc., as you can see there. The highlights and challenges for this year, as mentioned by Dr. Buchan, recognition of the inflation changes over the year, continued construction works of the RCMP detachment, continued early works on our small-scale wastewater treatment project, and continued work on emergency water breaks and replacement of critical piping infrastructure, the scope of which is highly dependent on our federal funding application, but also we've received quite a significant contribution from the province with which to start. Not that residents need reminding, given the frequency of road closures from repair efforts throughout the year. Here is a graph of the frequency of water repairs, which has prompted the significant replacement project called the BEAR project, which is an acronym for the Boulevard to Boulevard Essential Asset Replacement Project. This frequency of breaks is well outside the range of normal and is a direct result of not undertaking systematic planned replacement even during tough economic times in our past. The increased frequency of breaks prompted staff to commission an infrastructure replacement study to identify high priority areas for replacement, which would support our grant requests as well as help us target funds to the highest risk of failure areas. The sections in red are those proposed to be replaced over the next 3 years under the BEAR replacement project. This project will address water, sewer, and road infrastructure. This table shows the value of capital expenditure and the funding sources for the BEAR project over the next 3 years, which is budgeted. The city adopted $45 million worth of loan bylaws to contribute towards the project. The province has contributed $65 million for water infrastructure and is contributing additional value through the replacement of the pipes under the new roundabout at McBride and 2nd Avenue West. We are still awaiting an answer on our federal application for funding in the amount of $82 million. Should we obtain these funds, the red sections on the previous map will be fully funded. This project is giant in scale at $205 million and amounts to 26 kilometers, nearly 1/3 of our underground infrastructure. As mentioned, the proposed tax increase to balance the budget is currently sitting at 7.7%. Using the 2023 assessed values, this works out to approximately $99 for the average homeowner. 2024's assessed values won't be known until January. Irrespective of assessed values, our projected operating deficit for the general fund is $1.8 million. The drivers are presented on this slide and show the amounts as well as the tax increase attributed to these drivers, as was previously identified by Dr. Buchan. The budget deficit does not include certain items as identified here. Council can consider to include them in the budget, understanding that they would present an additional increase. Prince Rupert Legacy is providing dividends to offset a significant amount of the costs in projects that would either be funded through taxes or utility fee increases. Dividends from Legacy are not utilized to offset property tax or utility increases that are driven by normal operating costs. The reason for this can be seen on this following slide. This is an example where using dividends to offset taxes in a year results in a heavy penalty in the subsequent year. Should a situation arise where funds can't be provided through dividends on a continuous basis, the taxpayers in the subsequent year will have a spike in taxes. They essentially have to fund 2 years of inflation in 1 year. This is why it is best to fund one-time capital or special projected items, through dividends, and why staff do not recommend offsetting inflationary operating increases through dividends. We will now proceed with the budget requests. Council will recall that we will go through each request and identify the funding source. The justifications are included in the budget document attached to the report to Council for you to follow along. Should Council have any questions, Council is asked to direct their question through the Mayor at the time a category is being presented, and the responsible staff member will approach the mic to take the question. We will interpret silence on a category as an indication that Council does not have a question at this time. I now ask you to turn to page 53 of the budget document.
Before you proceed, Manager Stewart, there is a special delivery, I think, just outside the door there. Can you facilitate that for us? Thank you. Continue.
As mentioned earlier, part of our operating budget deficit, is in respect of the transit contract. The amount is $130,000 and is funded through taxation. The library budget requires an additional contribution from the city in the amount of $27,000. This is proposed to be funded through taxation. Staff contractual and benefit increases make up $930,000 and is funded through taxation. The city is still operating in a period of inflation, resulting in an increase across the operating departments in non-wage categories in the amount of $202,000 funded through taxation. The RCMP contract increase amounts to $332,000 funded through taxation. And the final category in our operating deficit to be funded through taxation is 1.5 full-time equivalents in added staff members and 1 backfilling of a staff member. I will ask the responsible managers to come to the mic to explain the need for these staff members. The taxation needed to fund the 2.5 full-time equivalents is $180,000. I will ask both Director Pope and Director Pucci, who is online. We'll start with Director Pope.
Thank you. I will be speaking to the casual 0.5 full-time equivalent request. This is for a customer service clerk, part-time casual in the Development Services Department. This department requests funds to support the casual clerk on the customer service team, as we will be redeploying one of the 4 current clerks to support the bylaw enforcement team to meet the city's strategic goal of providing appropriate laws and services. For context, these customer service clerks support bylaw, engineering, planning, building, business, cemetery, finance, and other departments as needed. Currently, clerks rotate the front desk coverage as well. And so with a reduction to 3 full-time clerks, this would only leave 2 clerks to manage all remaining portfolios while the third clerk is away. So during specific peak times of years, the casual clerk would be the temporary 4th clerk and allow the customer service team to manage the remaining portfolios.
Any questions? Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, you're taking one of the clerks from the general pool, I'd call it, the front desk, and moving them down to bylaw. Who's doing that work now in bylaw?
Director Pope, or who's best position?
Currently, the general pool, as you refer to them, of clerks covers bylaw as well. However, we found that the portfolio of bylaw has become probably the equivalent of a full-time position, and so that means that there's not enough clerks to fill all portfolios as is, and so we're creating a full-time position, seconding a full position to the bylaw department to support that work, particularly as it is meeting one of the strategic goals of council.
Would it be fair to say too that there's this will add an element of consistency to the support for bylaw?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you. Any Councillor Cunningham?
Has the bylaw revenues increased sufficiently?
Director, what's your name? Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, your microphone is not on, so you may.
It is now,
Okay, beautiful.
but thank you.
You're welcome. The payment rate for bylaw is increasing. I just spoke to one of the bylaw officers today, and we're probably close to the 50 to 60% mark in terms of payment of fines. But in order to attain that, it is a significant amount of administrative work to send out follow-up notices, go to court to get summons for tickets. Continuous follow-up for that really does warrant an additional work. It is having the bylaw officer do that pulls them off of being able to enforce the bylaws.
Councillor Cunningham.
So does that mean the clerk will be doing court duties and the bylaw officers won't be?
Director Miller.
Thank you. To a certain extent, yes, the bylaw officers will go out and enforce and provide tickets and will still be involved in the court processes. It will be the clerk's position to take care of all the administrative functions in relation to going to court.
Thank you. Continue. Thanks.
I will now call on Director Pucci.
Director Pucci.
Thank you. Through the chair, I hope everyone can hear me fine. So we are looking for one FTE under the operations department. This person would be at City Hall and working within the GIS department and really be the connection between the GIS operations and planning DSD department. What we're finding is a significant lag in approvals associated with engineering and public works. Engineering and public works staff is extremely taxed right now. They are overwhelmed and not able to provide the assistance that's required for development services and planning. This person would be able to be that connection, be able to get the information required for planning and development to allow permits to flow through easier and quicker. And then also this person would assist in asset management as we are going to be having a lot of data brought through as part of the overall BEAR project. So this person would also be able to help facilitate bringing that in and making our system better overall. Thank you.
Any questions? We'll continue.
And finally, I'll call upon Dr. Buchan if you'd like to say any further words regarding the Director of Recreation.
Your Worship, I have nothing further to what I've already said.
Thank you. Continue along.
Thank you. These last 6 slides make up the 1.8 million deficit, which is resulting in the estimated tax increase of 7.7%. The remaining items to be discussed will not increase property taxes.
Councillor Cunningham.
I just got an email from somebody from the public says there's no sound on the TV.
No sound at all?
There's no sound on the TV.
All right. They're on it. Thank you.
I have nothing important to say anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so carrying on, for those that are in the audience on TV, hopefully you will be able to catch up by going to our website and or looking for the recording of this council presentation on YouTube. The fire department had a radio study done to identify dead zones in 2023. Workers' compensation requires that firefighters have an effective means of communication. The elimination of these dead zones will require the installation of several repeaters and upgrading of portable, mobile, and base radios from a VHF to a UHF system. The cost is $532,000, funded by a grant.
Any questions? Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, do we have service agreements with Alta Gas and the port and people like this where it's pointed out in this capital project request that it's to service, you know, Pembina's on our property, so we're responsible for them for firefighting and that. But when we get to Trigon and all the port properties, do we have a service agreement with them for our firefighters?
Dr. Buchan.
Your worship, we do not. We have been in discussions, significant discussions with the Port Authority, who's been liaising with their tenants about enhancing our fire department's new facility and expanded staff so that we can provide the service that is required by them. But at this point, our service is very limited. We don't have the staff, the equipment, or the training for much of what is required out there. There may be some office building responses that we could provide in a limited fashion, but at this point in time, the answer is largely no. We don't provide the service, and that's because we don't have the resources.
But this is
Councillor Cunningham.
this is another example of us supplying something to the port and getting nothing back. And I think that in this situation, we should be talking to the port about paying some of this expense. That's just my thought on it. I was kind of, there's a few things that go on, and I know the port's been working well with us on lots of other situations, but this is another example of if there is a fire in any of these facilities, our firefighters are going to be responding, and they might not be, it could be the hazmat situation they're not trained for, but they're still going to go there.
Well, I mean, the fire chief is here. Here's the reality of what's happened in our community. And just stepping back, right, is when our fire department was created, and as the community grew, we largely had fish plants on the waterfront, right, and we've turned into a very different industrial community with propane export facilities and grain. We had the grain terminals downtown, but I'm talking about the PRG out there and stacks of coal. Anyway, the nature of the beast has changed, and our fire department would not respond to situations where they're not capable, either through apparatus or through training. But Chief, do you want to come speak to this at all?
I can give you.
Dr. Buchan?
Your worship, I think I'd like to say that we are in discussions with the PRPA. We have been looking for locations and actually had a location for a facility and so a framework for an agreement for enhanced services. But the cost for that particular location came in far greater than we anticipated, and it was a non-starter for both of us. So we're back to looking for a location, and the other thing that has really come up since we started this exploration with the PRPA is the fact that our financial position, our capacity to borrow, has profoundly diminished. A, because of interest rates, and B, because of the capital that we are having to put into failing infrastructure. So an enhanced service in the near future with the PRPA and service agreement is not going to be soon unless we find a senior government grant that will cover the entire amount. Or in combination with PRPA. It's something that remains important to us, but the financial reality is we don't have the money to do this.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if I might just ask a different kind of question.
Go ahead.
My understanding when I look at this is the asset cost is what it costs us. The reserve surplus comes from money that we have left over from somewhere else.
Correct.
Borrowing is from a loan. A grant doesn't cost taxpayers anything. Dividend doesn't cost taxpayers anything because it's money that Legacy or somewhere else is giving to us. So again, it's not costing anybody taxation.
Correct.
So the only things that are impacting our taxation is the very last one, taxation. Is that correct? Just because I know last year, being new, when I went through all of these, a lot of people asked me those questions.
Correct.
And so I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, you're correct.
Thank you. And to speak to Councillor Cunningham through the mayor, this particular item, again, the radio system replacement is proposed to be funded through a grant. The next item is the fire reserve pumper. A reserve pumper was approved in 2022, ordered in 2023, and will be delivered in 2024. Supply chain constraints delayed this apparatus. The budget for this item is being rolled forward to 2024. Borrowing is proposed to be temporary, with payments starting in 2025. Command vehicles are replaced every 8 years. As this command vehicle is in front of the fire department. Command 2 is proposed to be moved to a secondary service vehicle to shuttle firefighters and equipment to from emergencies. This vehicle has been in service for 9 years and is to be replaced at a cost of $90,000 to be funded from reserves.
Councillor Adie.
Just a question on what happens to the old vehicle and if there's money to be gained through switching to a new one.
Director Bauman.
This vehicle will be moved to a secondary service vehicle to shuttle firefighters and equipment to from emergencies.
There you go.
My apologies.
That's okay. If you didn't catch it the first time, chances are someone else didn't either.
No, exactly. And we're here to get clarity as much as we can. So ask away.
Self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA, are to be replaced at regular intervals as well. The current SCBA equipment has been in service for 14 years and will no longer qualify to continue service within a year. The cost to replace the equipment is $490,000 and is to be funded from reserves. Moving on, the Lester Centre is a city-owned building. Budget is requested to rebuild a portion of the main floor exterior interior wall at a cost of $20,000 to be funded by reserves. A roof assessment was commissioned in 2022, and the roof over the stage at the Lester Centre was identified as being past its expected life cycle. To protect the stage, the main reason for the centre, budget is requested to replace the roof. The amount requested is $200,000, made up of $18,000 surplus and $20,000 surplus and $180,000 of reserves. Staff do intend to apply for grants if any are available.
Councillor Niche.
Just a question with this roof replacement. I know, we did a roof replacement on the main roof a couple years back. Now, is this also including the roof at the back of the building where there was a leak in, I don't know what they call it, but it's behind the stage. So is that what this is part of?
No, this is not a part of the rehearsal space. We understand that one has kind of been stopped, but the entire roof assessment that was done did look at that particular area as well, and they identified that the more immediate one to deal with would be the stage roof. We will be coming forward in future years to address the remaining tiered roofs. Budget is requested to remove and purchase and install carpet in the public and children's areas in the library. The budget requested is $55,000 to be funded from reserves. Staff intend to apply for grants if any are available as well. Budget in the amount of $100,000 is requested to address safety issues in the fire hall. The budget is $100,000 funded from surplus. Budget was requested in 2023 to undertake leasehold improvements at the McCarthy Building for the purposes of moving public works into it. It became apparent at a detailed review of that a detailed review of the exact needs of the department was necessary. A rollover of $75,000 is requested to finish the assessment of the requirements and the completion of a Class B cost estimate. This estimate will be utilized to bring forward to Council for consideration at a later date. Funding is through dividends. The RCMP detachment is in construction. The amount requested to roll over to 2024 is $17.1 million of the $26.1 million originally budgeted. This is to be funded in part through reserves and borrowing. Long-term debt will not be taken until the project is completed and the final borrowing amount is known. Budget is requested to address high-priority improvements in the arena. Areas of the floor and ice surface are experiencing heaving, requiring an investigation into the issue. Additionally, the mechanical and Zamboni room require improvements to the heating to prevent pipes from freezing during cold spells. Budget requested is $100,000 to be funded out of existing taxation. This is not an increase, it's existing. Budget is requested to fund accessibility improvements to the second floor washroom in the Civic Center. Staff are pursuing grants for this project, principally with the balance funded through a dividend. When the city received the pulp mill at tax sale, it inherited the dams associated with its operation. The provincial dam safety branch is requiring some work to be conducted. The budget is $250,000 funded through a dividend. Watson Island Power project aims to bring power to the pump house and the Zanardi leachate pump station and move away from utilizing a generator for that purpose. These are also items associated with Watson Island. Proposed cost is $35,000 funded through a dividend. Funds are requested to be available to allocate towards the city's land purchase program. This program identifies properties that would be strategic for the city to own and allows staff to assess and purchase if necessary. Funding is from the land reserves designated for this purpose. Although not included in the budget presently, should Council direct it, funds in the amount of $250,000 would be necessary to make the required improvements to reopen the staircase between 4th Avenue West and 3rd Avenue West. The cost is proposed to be funded through taxes and would result in additional increase.
Councillor Adey.
I'll try to do better than my last question. I appreciate that this project is of great interest to the community members that brought the concern forward. I also appreciate that it may be something that we choose to pursue this year or choose not to. The point I'd like to make about it is that in 2023, in the 2023 budget, we allocated $50,000 from reserve or surplus to the Odd Eidsvik Park improvement being pursued by a neighborhood advocacy group. And I think it was to be an in-kind contribution. That project was delayed due to other funding challenges. And we decided earlier this year, because it was sitting idle at that point, to shift that amount in order to investigate the costs of the 4th Avenue pathway. I think it is fair to say that both these initiatives are the product of pretty broad neighborhood consensus in both those neighborhoods. So I note that in the 2024 budget, the Odd Eidsvik Park funding has not been rolled over, and the city manager referred to some of the difficult decisions that have to be made in terms of trimming this as much as we can. I appreciate that. So I think it's understandable. However, I think, and this is by way of comment, I think we need to maintain an awareness that there is a link historically now between these two projects. I don't feel that we should rob Peter to pay Paul without paying Peter back. And although I'm not sure that it's going to survive the test of this particular round of budgets, I do think we need to make the decisions we make about the 4th Avenue pathway with the Odd Eidsvik Park commitment that was made earlier in mind. So I would like them not to get lost.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And staff is live to the park up at Eidsvik Park. We are still pursuing grants. It's just presently we don't have any information on any grants that are available. This is the budget that is being proposed right now, but we do anticipate that we will be coming forward probably in the spring with any types of amendments, which we hope will include the Eidsvik Park.
Councillor Cunningham.
I know staff's quite diligent when it comes to applying for grants and that, but with the 3rd, 4th Avenue stairs pathway, because it involves an aspect of transportation, if people aren't having a direct access from that area of town, downtown, they're probably driving. And I don't know if there's, like I said, I know you're quite diligent applying for grants and everything, but I just thought, I brought it up earlier about a possible grant or something to alleviate any traffic that car traffic people are using. I don't know if
Active
it's a different angle you can look at or not, but it's just something that possibly we can get some funding through a transportation grant.
I'm sure the team's on it. Thank you.
Yes, we like other people's money, not the city's money or our taxpayers' money. So we're always looking for other grants. So yes. The rollover of unspent funds for the controlled access and cameras at Public Works Yard is requested. Remainder of the project is $38,000 funded through dividends. Staff are requesting the continuation of the streetlight replacement program, which targets streetlights that are corroded at the base. Funding is proposed from reserve and a dividend. Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Forster.
Sorry, just on this one, I've had several people point out to me recently that lights are burnt out. This would be different from burnt out lights. And if people are noticing
Correct.
burnt out lights, they can go onto the website and phone the number to get lights
Correct.
done.
Correct.
Sorry, just thought I'd clarify that.
A plug, that sounds good. The city is requesting the rollover of the waterfront development project. The value of the project is $10 million, funded 100% through a grant received from the province. This project will see the relocation of the airport ferry dock to the center of town and include overall aesthetic improvements. The 3rd Avenue and Fulton traffic light replacement was approved for 2023, but sadly underestimated. The city's sole traffic light does not conform to today's traffic standards and is more expensive to replace than first estimated. Presently, the $315,000 cost is proposed to be funded through $165,000 in reserves and a $150,000 dividend. However, staff will be applying for a grant to contribute towards the accessibility components of the of this project, such as audible cues. Another rollover request is for the resurfacing and fence repairs at the McBride Street Sport Court. This project has been approved since 2020 and has faced installation challenges. Staff have the materials on hand and will continue sourcing a qualified installer. The cost is budgeted at $100,000 with $65,000 funded from reserve and $35,000 rolled over surplus. The F-550 tow vehicle is a rollover of the approved 2023 budget. This vehicle was ordered in 2023, but delivery won't occur until 2024. Funding is still through reserves. The F-600 small commercial garbage truck is a rollover of the approved 2023 budget. This vehicle was ordered in 2023 as well, but delivery also won't occur until 2024. Funding is still through reserves. Transport Canada requires the airport ferry to be dry docked every 4 to 5 years. The last refit was completed in 2019, and the next refit is scheduled for 2024. It will require 53 days to complete, including transportation time. The refit includes a replacement of the 50-year-old engines, transmission, throttles, and shafts. Included in the cost is the estimated substitute service to continue transportation to the airport. The cost is $1.47 million to be funded through reserve, existing taxation, and short-term borrowing. The city's transportation plan identified a need for improved transit amenities such as bus shelters. Budget is requested in the amount of $135,000 to be funded through a grant and surplus. Budget is requested to complete repairs on the 6th Avenue Bridge to keep the weight restrictions from being downgraded. Should that occur, bypasses would need to be constructed to ensure emergency services and transit could reach all parts of town. The cost is $2.18 million, funded through reserves and a dividend. The next item is the annual sidewalk renewal program. The budget is $100,000 funded through existing taxation. Next category is the annual paving program. The budget is $1 million funded through existing taxation.
Go ahead, Councillor Adie.
I'm just curious about this one. And this question might also apply to the sidewalk as well, the previous item. Assuming we get the money to go forward with the infrastructure repairs, and we're talking about 26 kilometers of road that gets paved, and we're looking at $1 million here, and not for that purpose. This is for the regular maintenance of roads. I'm just wondering if the 26 kilometers over the next 3 years gets paved, does that take some pressure off this amount, this $1 million and the previous $100,000 for sidewalks, to allow us to either take that amount of money and do a more comprehensive job with the roads left over, or to possibly consider some other application for the money?
Director Bauman.
I will actually turn to Director Pucci to answer this question.
Thank you. Yeah, so you're correct, Councillor Adie. Oh, sorry, through the chair. You're correct, Councillor Adie. We will be only focusing our efforts on avenues and streets that are not included in the 26 kilometers. So this is what we would like to focus on, those to ensure that those get the necessary upgrades. If we know that we will be taking up asphalt and sidewalk in the 26 kilometers, then there's no point in doing repairs unless they really, really need it. So we will be focusing this on the other areas of town, hopefully to get a lot more life out of that infrastructure. Thank you.
So Director Pucci, beyond that, 3 years is done, third of the underground infrastructure is complete. How does $1 million a year do at then maintaining that? How does $100,000 a year for sidewalks do it on the asset management long term?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's still not enough. Typically, we've done estimates in the last couple of years. We should be doing about $2.2 to $2.3 million worth of paving annually with the network that we have. So in order to stay above the line, that was the number. However, I think after we've repaved all the 26 kilometers, we'll have a large bump in our asset management to a bunch of very new infrastructure. So I think the system will be able to tell us what that number is. We can use the system to tell us where we should go next and how much money we should be spending and where it should go. So as we input the data into the system, it should be giving us real-time numbers for future planning.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very, very similar to your question, actually. As somebody who doesn't do paving, I don't really know if I understand even how much it costs to do the work to fill a pothole. Do you like?
Right.
I don't know that. So it's helpful to understand that the amount that we have is less than half of what we actually need if we want to be able to be doing things.
Right. Fair comment. Councillor Cunningham.
So the 26 kilometers is 1/3 of our streets. Is
Right.
that okay?
Roughly.
So then we still have 2/3 of the streets that have to be repaved. So it just stands to me that, you know, there's 2/3 of the town that still needs to be repaved in different areas, and that some of them do have new piping or piping that's not going to have to be replaced in the near future. And we will be, this $1 million plus the sidewalk will be concentrated in those areas.
Yeah.
So it's not a fact that, or it's not a factor that this money can be used for something else. It's still going to, as Director Pucci says, it's still not enough to do what we need it to be done.
Right. Fair comment. Dr. Buchan.
Your Worship, and just to complement what's already been said about the inadequacy of the $1 million as it stands now and into the future, the 26 kilometers may not see all of those roadways completely redone. That it's what's necessary to redo the pipes. In some cases, it may be boulevard to boulevard, but in some cases, it may not be. You know, the most important thing in this is to get those pipes replaced, and it's the estimate is based on replacing, you know, like for like what we have now, but only that portion which must come out.
All right, continue on.
Thank you. Moving on to our utilities. Although the Wantage Road landfill site has been closed since the early 90s, standards have changed and the city is now required to monitor and report as per a new permit issued by the Ministry of Environment. The cost is $120,000 to be funded from surplus and solid waste fees.
Sorry, is that an increase to solid waste or just the existing?
It's existing.
Thank you.
The current landfill site recently opened a new cell for the intake of waste. The old cell must be closed, and funds were set aside to pay for this. This particular request is for the engineering to close the west and top of the old cell. The budget is $250,000 from accrued funds. This request is for closure works of the aforementioned old cell. The budget is $2.5 million from accrued funds. The city needs to conduct some concluding works on the new cell and lagoon. These works include upgraded blowers, a media tank, and other compliance-related items to ensure the site functions within its operating certificate. Budget is $1.5 million funded from reserves. Road protection works are necessary on the road to access Woodworth Dam after degradation that has occurred following some significant storms experienced over the past couple of years. Budget in the amount of $500,000 is requested, proposed to be funded through a dividend. As a part of securing the water transmission to Cane Island, a rollover the budget is requested to continue the engineering of the submarine and overland line from our watershed on the mainland. The amount requested is $1 million funded through a grant that was placed in reserve for this specific item.
Councillor Cunningham.
So this $1 million is just the engineering costs?
Director Pucci.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes. So the engineering costs associated with both of these is in the realm of $1 million. Correct.
So I asked a while ago, why won't we just hire an engineer and have a staff engineer, even if it's just a temporary 2-year contract to do this work? Because I noticed in other aspects of our budget, we have engineering costs too. And, you know, a million here, a $250,000 there, it adds up pretty quick, and we could have a staff member for a term contract or something to do work like this. And would that not be more feasible and cheaper?
I'll go to Director Pucci, but I remember the answer to your question, and that was we have hired some technical support, but no one engineer is going to be up to. These are multiple different disciplines that require large firms to participate um, across a whole bunch of disciplines. It wouldn't be cost effective for us to hire all the disciplines that we need to do all that work. But Director Pucci, you could put a finer point on it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the mayor. Yes, that's correct. I mean, it's a team of engineers that actually design mega projects like this. This is not necessarily a manhole to manhole straight shot. These are, you know, there's everything from designing anchors to the sea bottom floor, to how the chains loop around the pipe, to the type of pipe, and they're very specialized disciplines. So on this one, for instance, the undersea is extremely specialized. The overland is specialized as well because it's a high pressure pipe with pedestals. So there's several different disciplines, and so these companies that we hire have all of those in house and are able to sort of shuffle the design between those disciplines to give us one product that we can then go to tender with. Thank you.
Continue.
Construction of the aforementioned submarine and overland line from the mainland to Kane Island is requested. This was an approved project that was not able to be started in 2023. 14 million budgeted funding is through a grant placed in reserves as was required and borrowing. This project, the SCADA upgrade, is linked to overall improvements to our water system and will upgrade the supervisory control and data acquisition system, an industrial control system designed to monitor the city's water and sewer pump station operations on-site or remotely. These upgrades are mandatory as failure of the existing system is imminent and parts cannot be obtained. This project was approved in 2022 and rollover is anticipated to be 1.4 million. The full project is anticipated to be complete in Q2 of 2024. In order to initiate our replacement of the Bear replacement project, we need to complete design works to replace our 26 kilometers of priority water and sewer lines. Funds for this project were obtained through loan authorization, which will be a multi-year project. The Water System Master Plan is the next category. This funding will finalize our Water System Master Plan to review the size and type of pipe being replaced and is linked in with the design works described in the previous slide. The $250,000 request is part of the loan authorization approved in 2023 and should be complete in 2024. This major capital expense of $50 million is the planned 2024 portion of replacing 26 kilometers of at-risk water pipes. This work is anticipated to begin in 2024 and carry on for the following 3 years. The water portion of the project is funded entirely through grants. The annual water line repairs is above and beyond the major Bear project. To target the ad hoc emergency breaks that are anticipated to continue to occur in sections of pipe not yet replaced. Once our major renewal project is complete, a greater portion of this annual funding will be able to be redirected to planned capital replacements instead of emergency repairs. This budget of $1 million is funded through existing utility fees. The liquid waste management plan funding is to complete the engineering and design of a liquid waste wetland treatment system in a small section of the community with the intent to extend the program to the rest of the community if it proves to be effective. The majority of the project is funded through grants. This is the capital component of the pilot wetland treatment project just mentioned, funded in part through grant and in part through surplus, as the funding was set aside last year and is being carried forward. Upgrades are necessary at the Omineeka wastewater lift station, as indicated by a replacement study. This work is contemplated as a component of a future location of wetland treatment facility and may operate in this area. Budget is $650,000 funded through sewer surplus. This is the sewer-related costs of the SCADA, of the upgrade to the SCADA system. This project was approved in 2022 as a refresher, with the rollover of the sewer portion of this project being $438,000 funded through sewer surplus. Full project is anticipated to be complete in Q2 of 2024. The Hayes Creek replacement study is to replace a sewer main that runs along and in some points through Hayes Creek in McClymont Park. The study will review and design a solution to relocate the sewer main outside the riparian area. This was a 2023 project requested to be carried forward due to staff shortages and consultant availability. The budget is $125,000 funded through sewer surplus. This next request is for funds to complete the engineering and design for a new wastewater treatment plant in the industrial site. Unfortunately, this project was not completed in 2023 due to staff shortages and consultant availability, and so the full budget of $150,000 funded through reserves is requested to be carried forward. The Operations Department requests funds to continue with its outfall camera program. The federal government requires this program under the Liquid Waste Management Plan to ensure our outfalls are operating as they should. Funding for the $25,000 budget is through sewer surplus. Outfall L is located at Seal Cove beside the Loch Wallam's ferry berth and is damaged and in need of repair, in order for us to remain in good standing with our permits and administrative directive. The design work was completed in 2023, and staff is requesting the funds to make the required repairs in 2024. Budget is $1.5 million to be funded from sewer fees and, existing sewer fees and sewer surplus. The next category is outfall J to I repairs. This funding is being requested to eliminate outfall J, which currently runs under Rushbrook floats. Design works are needed to consolidate outfall J into outfall I and eliminate J altogether. This work is also requested to be complete to align with our administrative directive from upper levels of government, as well as to prepare for wastewater treatment. The budget is $250,000 and is to be funded out of sewer surplus. The next one is our operational funding to target the ad hoc emergency sewer breaks as they occur. Once our aggressive infrastructure renewal strategy for our priority 26 kilometers is complete, we hope to be able to redeploy these operational funds to planned capital replacements. It is funded $750,000 through existing utility fees. And the infrastructure replacement strategy design works is the cost for the design works for the sewer portion of our infrastructure replacement BEAR project. This portion of the project is funded through borrowing, which was approved in 2023. And the next one is $20 million, which is the cost for the capital replacement for our BEAR project for the sewer portion of 2024. This portion of the project is funded through borrowing, approved in 2023, and we have allocated for a portion of the funding to come through grant, which assumes a positive outcome for our federal grant application. The total wastewater capital replacement costs associated with the project is anticipated at $60 million. And that concludes our capital budget. And we will now move into the special project requests. First up is the PRIME training through the policing department. The Police Records Information Environment, or PRIME, Records Management System training is targeted at the city's municipal employees who support our RCMP detachment. The training is vital to support effective municipal policing and compliancy to Uniform Crime Reporting to Statistics Canada. That's a mouthful. The training is in person at the Pacific Regional Training Center in Chilliwack, and the costs include travel. It is funded through a dividend. The next item is the carry forward of the grant funds for the situation tables. The grant funds were provided to the city to establish a local situation table, which is now operating. The funding is proposed to be used for training to support table operations in 2024. Given all of the work on water system replacement over the next several years and sewer, this request is for our firefighters to be trained in trench collapse, which is a potential risk from this type of work. The training provides specialized response to this type of incident should it occur. It is to be funded through a grant. The Human Resources and Public Works, Safe Work Procedures Field Hazard Assessment and Training is to complete new standard work procedures, field hazard assessment procedures, and required staff training to ensure our Public Works Department is aligned to current industry standard. This work is a carry forward from 2023. It is $100,000, funded $50,000 from surplus and $50,000 from dividends. The records management, BEAR project and asset management spending, annual asset management spending, is the cost to ensure that as major replacements are conducted, that asset data is appropriately captured and tracked so we don't run into situations in the future like we are right now. This supports our asset management program and will save renewal and maintenance costs over the long term. It is funded $50,000 from grant, $50,000 from dividends for a total project cost of $100,000. The grout around the pool deck tiles are loosening, necessitating regrouting. To ensure programming can be offered safely and unimpeded. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, is this one? Okay. Allocating funds to this project is requested. Funding is from existing taxation in the amount of $25,000.
Councillor Forster.
Sorry, just a quick question. Is that going to be enough? Is that going to do all the tiles? Is that just going to fix ones that are broken? I don't know. I don't do a lot of grouting.
Director Bombin.
I will direct it to Director Miller.
Director Miller.
Thank you. The amount that's currently budgeted will fix what needs to be fixed and isn't going to take everything, but it'll certainly address the problem areas in the pool deck.
Thank you.
The Fleet Management Report project is a comprehensive review of the department's entire vehicle and mobile equipment fleet and recommends a tracking system for asset management and to structure our fleet renewal process. This project was partially completed in 2023 with the remaining funds held over for 2024 to complete the report. It is funded through surplus. The city and our regional partners at the Regional District, Port Edward, and the library established our Regional Accessibility Committee in the summer of 2023, as per provincial mandate and council strategic plan. Since that time, the committee has been working to identify priority areas for accessibility improvements throughout the community. The city intends to apply for grant funding to support minor accessibility improvements to civic facilities and infrastructure. The amount proposed is $25,000 funded by grant.
Councillor Forster.
Thanks. I've had a few people in the community ask me about what's happening with the Accessibility Committee. Where could community members find out information on what that group is working on?
I'm going to go straight over to Manager Stewart if you want to come forward and speak to that.
Hi there. So we've actually had a couple of public inquiries that are prompting me to potentially bring forward a memo to the next meeting of council that will provide a bit of an update on where the committee is at. We're currently in the process of developing our accessibility plan and then sending it to stakeholders in the community and then doing a public engagement following that. But we've had a lot of progress and it's making good strides.
Thank you.
The next one is Social Development and Poverty Reduction Plan. This project is wholly grant funded through UBCM's Poverty Action Planning Fund and was an identified strategic priority of council. The primary aim of this project will be to undertake an assessment of available local programs pertaining specifically to income and social supports and mental health addictions, their usage in the community, as well as potential shortfalls, blind spots, or available programming. Funding is in the amount of $20,000 and as a grant. The next one is Reconciliation Committee Establishment Projects. This funding is provided through a grant from UBCM to support the establishment of a Reconciliation Indigenous Relations Committee in 2024 as per Council's framework policy on reconciliation. The grant funds will be used in part to provide a stipend to committee members for participation, as well as a portion of funds that will be directed towards a community event and implementation of a project as determined by the committee. A report to council on the formation of the committee will be provided before year end. The project cost is $10,000 funded by grant. The next one is Food Systems Assessment and Strategy. The proposed local food system assessment strategy stems from policy adopted in the official community plan and council strategic directions from 2022 through 2026, and will seek to develop strategy to support community-based food systems initiatives through policy direction at the city. This project is funded both by dividend and staff will also be seeking grant opportunities to support the work. Total project is $50,000, $40,000 is a dividend, $10,000 is grant. Staff intend to apply for a grant to fund the Placemaking Transportation Safety Project, which is a recommendation of the Transportation Plan, and will implement a placemaking traffic calming project in a high traffic area of the community. The intent is to explore this potential low-cost option that may then be implemented in other areas of the community that were prioritized for traffic calming in the Transportation Plan. Project cost is $25,000. Funded by a grant. The next item is the Complete Communities Assessment. This project is entirely grant funded and will support the official community plan principle of complete communities. The grant was obtained in 2023 and the project will continue through 2024. The project will create a walkability, complete streets metric to inform budget prioritization, annual reporting, and asset management recommendations to identify priority corridors for future accessibility improvements, densification opportunities, improved connectivity to existing and new multifamily developments, active transportation network implementation, as well as community amenities. It's a $148,000 project, cost rolled over, all funded by a grant. And the Climate Adaptation and Action Plan project is entirely grant funded and began in July of 2023. The project will carry on through the first half of 2024. The project, also known as the CAP, will be a coordinated climate action plan that includes integrated strategies that both reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, and vulnerability to climate change impacts, adaptation, while advancing co-benefits that address other municipal priorities such as infrastructure replacement, financial sustainability, and community livability. The project cost is $47,000, funded by a grant. We are now moving into the community enhancement grants part of the presentation. The request from the community partners is $181,000 additional to what was already provided in the budget in 2023. This represents a 0.77% tax increase. It includes new applications from Harbor Theatre, North Coast Mountain Bike Association, and Prince Rupert Gymnastics. Increases requested from existing applicants and contributions under agreement such as the museum, the Leicester Centre, special events, Tourism Prince Rupert, and other in-kind contributions. In the package in front of you at the very end of all of the small write-ups on each of the community partners who have applied for a community enhancement grant, there is a recommendation from staff to hold the line, of course, and put it in council's court as to whether or not they will recommend any kind of an increase. For additional information on the full slate of requests, it's in pages 84 to 88. So the next comment is resident impact and feedback. So to calculate the impact to a taxpayer of the proposed tax increase, one needs to take the 2023 assessment at the moment, but once you get your 2024 assessment, please use that. You take your assessed value, divide it by 1,000, and then you multiply it by the residential mill rate, which is proposed. The proposed mill rate right now is 4.65389. Again, your 2024 assessed values won't be available until January of 2024. But you can still get an estimate of what the increase over this year's would have been using 2023's values. It won't be perfect, but at the end of the day, what we're really looking at here is the deficit. We're not really looking at the tax rate necessarily. That will actually fall out more in the spring. And of course, a reminder that the provincial government offers residents the homeowner grant and the tax deferral program. These programs are available to reduce property taxes paid and defer the tax payments through a loan that is recovered at the time of property sale. Details of these programs can be found on the provincial government website, the city's website, or on your property tax notice. The homeowners must make application to the province for the homeowner grant before the tax payment deadline on July 2nd of 2024, or a provincial penalty will be applied. The homeowner grant can be applied for more than likely in the spring. They'll open it up in April. This is just a reminder. Please, this is an old slide where it says can apply now. Don't apply now. Although if you didn't apply for 2023, apply now. And now we'll just talk a little bit about some of the public feedback. So there's going to be 2 public feedback opportunities. The first one in person is going to be November 9th at 7 p.m. at the Coast Mountain College. And the second public opportunity for in-person is November 14th at 7 p.m. at City Hall during the regular council meeting. But people can also go ahead and email questions or comments to finance@princerupert.ca. You can also phone 250-627-0914. And of course, we accept the old method, handwritten letters, that sort of thing, at City Hall at 424 3rd Avenue West. We do have an additional way of providing feedback from your cell phone or your computer, and that is through our budget simulation. We will be running this simulation for the 4th year in a row. And you can provide your feedback on what you think are the priorities for the city's budget directly by interacting through this. It will be launched after this meeting. And you can go to engage.princerupert.ca/budget 2024. It will be open until November 20th, 2023. And also included in that, and I'm sorry you can't see it all the way. I will try and move Richard out of the way. Sorry, Richard, you're moving. Included in the budget simulation is something called tax receipt. And what tax receipt does is it takes your residential property value that you input. Of course, again, you will only have your 2023 value at the moment. You can input that in, and then it will calculate approximately of your taxes that you'll be paying to the city only, not to the regional district, to the North Coast Regional District and the hospital district and all the others, but only to the city, which is what council has control over. It will actually tell you how much of your property taxes throughout that you've paid go to different city services, such as how much goes to the RCMP, to fire service, road maintenance, the swimming pool, that sort of thing, airport ferry. And this will give individuals an understanding of just how much of that tax burden is going to those various services. And that concludes a fairly lengthy presentation. Thank you for your questions. Again, we encourage as many people as possible to provide feedback. This is the city's budget. This is not, as Mayor said, this is staff's presentation of the budget, but we basically prepare it based on what the community wants and what council has directed. Thank you.
Don't go away, because I'm sure there's questions. Councillor Randawa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, thank you for your presentation. We are, our RCMP building will be complete next year, and our fire truck will be in next year too. So, and then payments will start. So those payments already included in the budget, or those will be different?
Director Bauman.
Yeah, those payments won't start until the following year. So as mentioned in the presentation and in the document, actually, it indicates that the fire pumper, the debt won't be taken until the end of 2024, in which case we'll start making payments in 2025. So we'll include that in the budget at that time. And then the RCMP loan, we intend on taking the debenture, and it'll be, I believe it's a 25-year debenture, just out of recollection, I believe so. And we won't take that on until we know exactly how much money we're going to have to borrow. So we're hoping to not have to borrow the $25 million loan authorization. We're hoping that it's going to come in underneath that. So we only want to borrow as what we have to. And there's only 2 times of the year that we can go ahead and get that long-term debenture with the MFA, and that is in March and September of every single year. This project won't be completed, or it's anticipated to be completed in June, in which case then we will know how much to take. Therefore, we won't get the debenture until September at the earliest, and debt payments won't start until 2025.
Councillor Nish.
Early thoughts. I looked through this budget and listened to everything that's on there, and it's 7.7% increase is obviously something that nobody wants to hear. And I'm sure that everyone could look through that budget and find one thing in their mind that they would rather not spend the money on. I mean, everyone's got their priorities. But just looking through this budget, it really goes to show you that the past and how little was done in this community, and here we are now. We have a great civic center and a great pool and a great performing arts center, all requiring work. And when those things were built, there was no pipes being replaced and no water lines and no sewer lines, and they were building new subdivisions but not replacing the old services. And it's just sad to look at this budget and say, there's nothing fun in it. There's nothing fun in it. And in the 9 years I've been here, there's nothing fun in a budget. And you go back, 40 years ago, it was fun. They spent money on fun stuff. they spent money on things because they didn't spend money on pipes that looked like that. And you know, so early thoughts. I mean, it's sad to say that, you know, you look at a 7.7% increase, and it's not something that I even want to entertain. You know, and I'm sure that you know, through some creativity, we might be able to get that a little lower. But the sad part about it, there's nothing fun at all in this document here. It's 90 pages of crap that we have to deal with from the past.
Councillor Rundell and then
Yeah.
Councillor 80.
So just one more question, like just to refresh my memory, like so we using a lot of surplus and reserves, right? So those are like we have one bucket, or we have different buckets for different reserves and surpluses when we use for the projects.
Oh, sorry, I actually turned that off. So surplus, it depends on which fund it's in, right? So if we're talking about sewer, and I suggest surplus, or we request using surplus rather, it is any time in the past where revenues have exceeded expenses. So there's basically some savings that's available that we can go ahead and utilize. And we don't utilize it for utility fee decreases, or else you end up with the exact same chart as the legacy dividend subsidization of taxes or utility fees. So we propose using those surpluses for capital items. So the surplus that we use for the general operating fund would be in time periods where revenues exceeded expenses. Now, of course, that it's not a lot for us because we're supposed to have a balanced budget every single year. Now, reserves. Some reserves are statutorily set up. So, for example, land reserves. So anytime we go ahead and sell land, that has to go into a land reserve, and it can only be used for capital items. Parking reserves can only be used for parking, etc. There are other, and as council just approved a bylaw, or to add to the reserve bylaw, the Growing Communities grant that was received this year. So that has been put into a reserve and for capital purposes. So when we propose using a reserve, typically it is from grants or from sales or designated funds that are received for certain purposes. And so we look at what is actually on the table for that needs funding, and we'll see what kinds of categories of reserves they will fall into and will be eligible for funding.
Councillor 80.
Yeah, thanks for all the work that goes into it, you and all the staff involved. It's a lot of work. I share Councillor Nish's regret that it's not necessarily a positive number that we're dealing with. I do want to comment on a couple of things that I think are worth noting. One is it identifies $13 million towards underground utilities related to the roundabout. So regardless of one's opinion about what happens above the ground, I would like to point out that that means that we're up to $78 million from the provincial government in support of the infrastructure effort. And I, at least from my perspective, I'm appreciative of that. The other thing I wanted to point out is with regard to those long-term debt projections, the information on pages 36 to 37, I really appreciate the inclusion of this information. It's something I'd asked about maybe around last year's budget. So seeing it in there is helpful in terms of understanding it. And although, as we've noted, there are payments that are going to become active in the next year or two, there are also some payments coming off the books as well. And that's it's a useful piece of this document in order to allow us to see that. Last point is just a question about process. I understand that we're doing this in the month of November to allow us to do the procurement pieces of the capital works, and also to allow us to consider the community enhancement grants in the context of the budget, which I appreciate. Previously, when we've done that in the fall and the budget's not coming out to the spring, sometimes you make decisions that don't necessarily reflect an informed understanding of of the budget reality. So that's helpful. I'm just curious about the process from here. We have public feedback up to November 14th and through the online activity to the 20th. So what are the steps after that, and at what point will we be making a final decision on this document?
Director Bombin.
Thank you. Through the mayor, thank you for the question. So the next council meeting in November is November 14th, which will be the second opportunity for public in-person feedback. And then we expect on November 27th, we will be coming forward with the information from the simulation, and also we'll bring forward all the other feedback if there's anything else that comes in that time. And then we will be requesting direction from council. Once we receive direction, we will prepare the 5-year financial plan bylaw. We will bring it forward to council, hopefully for a special council meeting first week of December, in order to have it read and introduced and given 3 readings. And then we will hopefully have it up for adoption at the regularly scheduled council meeting. I believe it is December the 9th or something like that. And then we will have approval for the following year's operations.
Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much. Really made my night. When I see this, one of the things that really impresses me is, we've got a 7.7 tax increase, but when you break it down, just 0.77 of it is, and all the rest we can't trim anything off. It's contractual. And people get raises, they go to work every day and they want more money, and we've got no choice. And with the RCMP or the transit, PNG, hydro and everything, those are all things we have no control over, I would say. And so when you look at the overall 7.7, next to a couple of replacements positions in that, it's down to 7, which is, I think you've done an awesome job. Thank you very much.
I think it's fair to say that that if you were in this room, I wasn't when they were doing this work, but if you were in this room when they started the work, there was a lot of blood that went on the floor between where they started and getting us to 7.7. Dr. Buchan, have you got any comment on where you started and where you got to?
Your Worship, yes, I will share that. I mean, we go through a process of looking at services and good things for the community, for sometimes fun things, right? Some things, sometimes important things, but can we possibly defer them? When we had the initial number, it was 41%. And then we cut it down, and we cut it down, and we got it down into just over 20. And then we sat around the table, and we cut hard. And it's a non-pleasant thing to be doing, especially when there's very good arguments for doing things. But we understand, and we had a very big increase last year. We have a lot of unavoidable costs this year. We're looking at a small number, frankly, in terms of percentage and actual dollars for some improvements to service level, so that we're not having to wait a couple months for getting a building permit out, so that we can get our documentation together properly for bylaw, so we can actually have our bylaw enforcement officers out there doing more bylaw work, and so that we can actually have a director in recreation that replace that. Those are important things, and we feel strongly about those. But this is your budget, yours and council's, your worship. We're here to take your direction.
Thank you. Second piece to this is, and I don't want to hold out false hope. I don't want to hold out false hope. But there are a number of revenue pieces that this is really the spending side that's going up, right? And all the cost drivers. We won't do the math, the final math on taxes until spring. And we get the assessment and everything else. In the meantime, we're working on things that may come to fruition. I don't want to hold out false hope, but you know, we continue to work on the payment in lieu of tax that's outstanding that could make a difference in the revenues next year. Continue to work on with the province and with the PRPA at our side on the cap. Is there a way of addressing that cap that makes us whole and still achieves other people's objectives? So if those things, if we were to land one or two of those things, I won't even include the RBA, that could affect the tax number. Is that correct?
Your Worship, I think there's decisions to be made, and I want to first of all agree with you. We are doing multiple things at once, responding to an infrastructure crisis, working very hard to get that house in order, and looking at the future and the revenues that we need to actually finance other infrastructure. Our infrastructure deficit is significant. It goes well beyond the 26 kilometers of pipes. There are many millions of dollars that are required for debt servicing for infrastructure into the future. So, yeah, I think that we must have success in these revenue efforts. As we have success with those, my sense of it is that they will need to go into capital, because there's an awful lot of capital to finance. And we've been very successful with finding help with that, with the capital in last year's budget, this year's budget. But we're expected to come to the table. This community came to the table in a profound way with a $45 million borrowing bylaw for our immediate project. We don't have another $45 million of borrowing room. We need those other revenues. So as they come in, I think that the strong recommendation is that they need to go where they need to go, which is infrastructure. So I'm sorry, I'm not giving you much hope on the operational side, but as we have success into the future, we will get there.
Couple other comment just in passing. Couple of realities that Prince Rupert faces, and I think we all understand this, but it's really worth repeating. There is exactly 0 communities in British Columbia that are going to do a ferry refit this year. There are exactly 0 communities in British Columbia that will pay $1 million to $1.5 million to subsidize a ferry run this year. Director Pucci, you may want to correct me on this, but my sense is that because of our soil types, which really don't exist, and our proximity to the ocean, our costs in managing a landfill are substantially higher than almost anywhere else in British Columbia where there's naturally occurring sands and gravels and they could put it away from fish-bearing habitat. Would that be accurate?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that and the amount of precipitation we have is every drop of water that falls on the landfill has to be treated and then held and before it can be released. Yes.
Thank you. So as much as we love our beautiful island, and I suspect I won't go as categorical on this, but if we're not the only, we've got to be one of the very few that run a subsea water line to get their water from one side to the other and have to spend $1 million just to engineer. I mean, they're just costs to being where we live, right? That drive prices higher, and as much as we work on all those other components, that's a reality I think that we just all have to accept as residents. If there's no other items, no other questions from council, I just got a couple quick announcements and then we'll adjourn the meeting. So a couple of things. I should have started at the beginning of the meeting by acknowledging Councillor Skelton Morven, some of you are aware, has a family member that's experiencing some difficulties, and he's not here tonight to help deal with some of that. I want to acknowledge Councillor Cunningham, who didn't fall asleep in the meeting, even though he began his day on Toronto time, and flew all the way across the country and is here. Councillor Forrester, I'm a little bit out of touch, but have you gone and received your award? That's coming up. Do some bragging. I'm inviting you to do some bragging. You are about to receive quite an award.
I'm actually going to be attending our next council meeting via Zoom because I have won the Governor General's Gold Medal for my thesis. So I will be traveling to Victoria November 14th to have the first part of the awards on November 15th and my graduation November 17th with my husband because he's coming, and I'm pretty excited. My thesis was on environmental sustainability and healthcare, and I was very lucky to partner with Northern Health to work on some of the great things that they're doing.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
I will be on the 15th leaving as well. I'll be attending. I've been invited to attend the Order of BC presentation to Chief Harold Layton, and I just didn't take me a second to say, yeah, I'll go. I'll be there to support that. Finally, a good deal of our community tonight is going to go dark, and so I don't think it's 100% because some of the areas have already been done, I think, but a large portion of our community, and if you go on the BC Hydro Planned Outages website, you'll see that large swaths of the community will be powered down from midnight through till approximately 6 in the morning. What has been happening over the course of quite an extended period of time, you've seen the BC Hydro trucks and their contractor trucks going all through our neighborhoods, replacing transformers to dual voltage transformers as they prepare to change the voltage in our overhead power lines. The higher voltage is more efficient. There's less loss in the lines, and so that's setting up Prince Rupert for the future. But in order to switch over, they need to literally turn the power off and then go to each and every one of those transformers all through town, and that's what I understand anyway, and flick them from whatever voltage it is now to the new voltage and then power it all up in the morning. You won't notice a difference in your home. It'll still, what hits your home will still be the same voltage you've always had. But it does mean that from midnight tonight till about 6 o'clock in the morning, you're going to need a few extra blankets and maybe a friend to cuddle with. So with that, if there's no other business in front of council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Randawa, Councillor Adey, all in favor? Any opposed? It is carried. Thank you very much for your work. It's fabulous work. Thank you.